Welcome back, everyone. Thank you all for being here. In today's video, we are going to be talking about AMD. They just reported their Q4 earnings, and let me tell you, Wall Street was not impressed. The stock opened this morning down 10%, and everyone and their dog is acting like this company is falling apart and going to $50. But here's the thing, I bought more today, and if this stock drops below $100, I'm loading up even more. Because yeah, earnings weren't perfect, but if you actually look at the numbers, this company is performing way better than people are giving them credit for in all the ways that matter most. So in today's video, we're going to break down exactly what is going on with AMD. We'll go over AMD's Q4 income statement and balance sheet, as well as a breakdown of a few one-time expenses that did hurt earnings but won't be a problem moving forward. We'll talk about AMD's 4 business sectors and how they are performing. And most importantly, I'll give my opinion on why I am still bullish long-term and was actively buying shares today. Oh, really quick too, we got to talk about Lisa Su. She has done an amazing job running AMD and deserves all the credit in the world for bringing AMD to where it is today. But I do have to say that her earnings calls are very dry. I don't know if any of you were able to listen in on that call yesterday, but man, it was a hard listen. All right. Well, anyway, let's get into it. We'll start with the numbers. I will be using their non-GAAP numbers as there are a few one-off expenses and acquisitions that made things look worse than they really are. So yeah, their GAAP financials are a bit off this quarter, but hopefully that won't be a problem moving forward. So revenue for the quarter came in at $7.7 billion, up 24% year over year. That's some seriously strong growth. Wall Street would be thrilled with most companies growing by 24%, but for some reason AMD is just not getting the credit that they deserve. This growth is primarily driven by the data and client segments. Earnings per share came in at $1.09, beating expectations by a penny. And then gross margins here came in at 54%, up from 51% last year, which means AMD is making more profit per dollar of sales. Lastly, operating income came in at $2 billion versus $1.4 billion in Q4 2023, which is great to see. So now, one thing that did hurt AMD's earnings this quarter was a bunch of one-time expenses. Some of these were related to acquisitions and restructuring costs, meaning they won't be on the income statement moving forward. For example, AMD paid $186 million for restructuring costs versus nothing back in Q4 2023. They also had a $419 tax provision this quarter versus a $297 income tax benefit back in Q4 2023, which actually helped them. So that's why I never look at just one quarter, because temporary costs don't reflect the long-term story. And the long-term story still looks great. Now, let's take a look at their balance sheet. Their balance sheet is stronger than it's ever been. Currently, they have $3.7 billion in cash and cash equivalents and $57.5 billion in total stockholder equity, up from $55.8 billion last year. So yeah, AMD's finances are in a great shape moving forward. They have plenty of liquidity to keep investing into themselves. All right, so now let's talk about where they're actually making their money and go through the 4 main sectors that make up AMD. First off, we have the data centers. This is where you'll see your AI and server chips. This is where a lot of the growth is coming. Next up, we have the client, which is the CPU for laptop and desktops, which is making a big comeback this year. Then we have the embedded, which is a makeup of all sorts of industries such as industrial, automotive, medical chips, yada yada. There's a whole bunch that are included here. Then we have gaming, which is an absolute dumpster fire right now in this quarter. But this is where you'll see your GPUs and console chips. Let's go through these one by one. So starting off, we have data centers. This is the AI growth machine. This is the big one. AMD's data center revenue came in at $3.9 billion, up 69% year over year, which is massive growth. Now, some analysts were disappointed because AMD's data center revenue was expected to come in at $4.12 billion. So yes, technically they did miss on that number, but let's also be honest here, 69% growth, that's still amazing. Analysts need to stop expecting AMD to be Nvidia because they are in totally different phases right now. One has a market cap of $3 trillion, and the other company opened up today under $200 billion. Next up here, we have the client segment, and some good news here. AMD's client segment is made up of the CPU and desktop industry, which pulled in $2.3 billion, up 58% year over year. PC sales are finally recovering, and people are actually starting to upgrade their computers again. AMD's Ryzen 8000 series has also been selling very well. A year ago, everyone thought PCs were dead, and now AMD is proving them wrong. Look at that operating margin. Last year we were only at 4%, now we're up to 19%, which is a great sign moving into 2025. Now, let's talk about embedded. This is an area AMD struggled with this quarter. Revenue came in at under $1 billion, down 13% year over year. Why did it come in so much lower? Well, a lot of AMD's customers stocked up on these chips last year, and now they're working through extra inventory before getting back to buying more. Is this a long-term issue, you might ask? Probably not. It's temporary. This segment should bounce back once demand stabilizes. Lastly, we'll get to gaming. Gaming is currently a full-blown dumpster fire this quarter. Revenue came in at $563 million, down 59% year over year. Sounds rough, right? But here's why I'm not crazy worried. I see this drop as mostly from the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X chip sales slowing down, which does make sense. Most people who wanted a new console have already bought one. But here's some good news. AMD's Radeon GPU are seeing more demand, which helps offset some of these console slowdowns. I do expect gaming to stabilize and improve by the back half of 2025, maybe the first part of 2026. Next up here, I want to go over AMD's financial outlook for Q1 2025. They are expecting revenue to come in right around $7.1 billion, which is higher than Wall Street's estimates. As you can see, that's $7.1 billion plus or minus $300 million. I personally think it's going to be on the higher end of that margin, coming in at maybe $7.2, $7.3 billion. I think AMD is going to want to start off Q1 2025 with a beat. They're expecting gross margin to be right around 54%, operating expenses to be at $2.1 billion. I think Q1 2025 will be pretty decent, but if they do miss on any numbers, or if the stock does go down in Q1 2025, that's okay. I will buy more because I am not in AMD for their performance in 2025. I'm in AMD for their performance in 2026 on. So we'll see what happens here. Quick full year summary of 2024. They've recorded record revenue of $25.8 billion, up 14% year over year. Data center segment grew revenue of 94% year over year, and the client is up 52% year over year. Gross margin came in at 49%, non-GAAP margin at 53%, and then they reported full EPS of $1, but the non-GAAP EPS is what we're actually really paying attention here, which came in at $3.31. I really want to make sure everyone does not think that AMD is NVIDIA. If you are expecting 80, 90, 100% revenue growth quarter over quarter, that's just not realistic for AMD. AMD is still a solid company and can exist in the same space as NVIDIA and be successful in that space, but do not think of AMD as NVIDIA at this time. So just want to make that clear to everyone moving forward. Let's sum everything up here. AMD stock is currently down 10%, but the business is growing and is in a much better place than Wall Street is giving credit for. If you do have a long-term stock outlook, this is nothing but a buying opportunity. AI revenue is exploding with their data center business leading the charge. PC sales are rebounding, client segment is in a good place, and then AMD has a rock-solid balance sheet. Me personally, I thought AMD was a good deal at $125, and I think it's a screaming deal at these levels. So yeah, I bought more today, and if AMD drops below $100, I'm buying even more. Because in my opinion, by late 2025, maybe early 2026, I expect this stock to be much higher than it is trading at right now. If you are like me and have a long-term outlook, this is a buying opportunity. If you are looking for a quick profit or a quick turnaround, AMD probably isn't the stock for you. I'm in AMD for where the stock will be in 2028 and on. I always have a long-term outlook. I don't care what happens to the price in 2025 because I believe in the long-term fundamentals of AMD. So what do you think? Are you buying, holding, waiting on the sidelines? Drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you enjoyed this video, please do like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel. Turn on those notification bells so you don't miss my next video and updates on AMD, and I will see you in the next one.